What do you judge to be the most effective instrument so far in school reform in the D.C. public schools? And what instrument has been missing or underused that offers promise for continued progress? Mayor Fenty first.
Well, you should always start with how the kids are doing in the classroom. I think what we have shown over the past 3 years is 2 consecutive years of graduation rates going up, 2 consecutive rates of dropout rates going down. Our local test scores have grown 17 percentage points. When we testified before the council 3 years ago, we said if we could go up 10 percentage points in 5 years, which is essentially what New York has done, that would be a great achievement. We've gone almost double that in half the time. We've led the nation in the gold standard of tests, the NAEP test scores, of course, in both reading and math for our 4th graders, which shows that our rate of increase is better than anyone in the country. And today is a landmark day because today the teachers ratified a contract that a couple years in the making is the best contract in the entire country ever negotiated in connecting the performance of the student with how much teachers will be paid, and our teachers, of course, will be paid more than any other teachers in the country.
Chairman Gray, would you like to comment on that? 1 minute.
Well, I think, and the council was pleased to be a part of this, I think the governance change that led to stripping away the bureaucracy that previously had been involved in running the school system in the District of Columbia and moving towards mayoral control. I was pleased to be in the council when the legislation was transmitted to the council to be the principal champion to get the legislation through the council that gave the mayor the opportunity to take over the schools and, frankly, to treat the District of Columbia Public Schools like yet another agency. I think one of the biggest challenges that we've had thus far is that while there are test scores that have been improved, the achievement gap in the District of Columbia has not narrowed at all. The gap that existed between various ethnic groups in the District of Columbia 3 years ago still exists today, and we haven't figured out, the city hasn't figured out how to begin to close that gap.
Mr. Alexander, 1 minute.
Yes, it's unfair to Mr. Fenty to criticize him on his position or what he's done with D.C. Public Schools because Mr. Gray was right there with him. I mean, he is the chairman of the committee that oversees management of D.C. Public Schools. Now, I will say this. When they talk about increased test scores, it's often what we used to do in television news. When we say that we're #1 in the market, it's only that we're #1 in the market for adults over the age of 65, or we've increased the numbers for adults under the age of 24. This is a switcheroo game, basically, a shell game, if you will. What's happened here in Washington, D.C., we've actually lost ground on SAT scores in reading and math over the last 3 years. Now, many of you may not know this, but they plan for the number of prisons on the achievement scores of 4th graders around the country. I'm going to make it mandatory that before a child goes on to the 2nd grade, they all know how to read and write. That's something that needs to happen in D.C. because that's the foundation where generational poverty begins, with illiteracy.